Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. Good morning, Mr. Hunt, and welcome to Reviews Without Remorse. This podcast, should you choose to accept it, will self-destruct in 5 seconds. I am Joe, the leader of the Impossible Missions Force. With me as always is my partner Dave, but should he or any of his IM Force be caught or killed, the Secretary will disavow any knowledge of his actions. This is episode number 54, and on this episode, Dave caught Annihilation this week. He will tell us all about it. Also, Joss Whedon has officially removed himself from the DCEU once more. We'll talk about that. J.J. Abrams has completed his script for episode 9. Do we care? Dave and I will discuss. And finally, Fahrenheit 451 reaches the screen again. What can we expect? Let's talk about it. What's going on, partner?
How you doing? I'm good. I'm a little excited, actually, to talk about Mission Impossible.
Your husband's here.
Let me see him.
He's extremely ill.
You have to tell me where he was, what he was doing.
It was his decision to go in. It's something they termed the Shimmer.
Dave caught Annihilation this week. I am very interested to hear what you think about it because I've heard pretty varied things about this film, and it's gotten my interest. So I'm kind of curious to see what you thought of it.
Okay, well, the first thing I'm going to tell you about this movie is that I can easily see it being a divisive movie. It is not. It doesn't spoon feed. It's not clear exactly what is going on until the movie progresses forward. It's vague. It's freaking beautiful as far as I'm concerned. I loved it. I absolutely positively loved it. I was riveted from the first scene. The funny part is it's not an action-packed movie. It's really not. It really is relying on character, story, and visuals to tell its story. And it tells it really, really damn well. It's got an outstanding cast. Natalie Portman, Benedict Wong, Oscar Isaac, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Gina Rodriguez, Tessa Thompson. All freaking amazing in each of their parts as the movie progresses. And as the movie progresses, you learn a little bit, and it's just visually stunning. And, like one of those movies like where it's like you say to yourself, okay, I know the only way they achieved this is with CGI, but it's done and integrated in such a way and so not in your face that it kind of makes it even more believable. If that makes sense.
Sure.
I really don't want to spoil the movie. I don't. The basic gist is a group of women, for all various reasons, enter this place where no one has come back from except for one person. And this is the story of that adventure. It is the best way I can describe it. And I was enthralled. It was a late movie I saw too. It was like a 10 o'clock showing of the movie. And I was like, God, I hope this doesn't, have like slow moments or anything like that, because I'll just pass right the hell out. And I wasn't. I was riveted I couldn't keep my eyes off the screen.
Okay.
Could not keep my eyes off the screen. Extremely well acted, deftly directed, written. God, just like Alex Garland has now gone like to the top of my, if he writes it and directs it, I'm seeing it list. Like above everybody else.
He did Ex Machina, right?
Yes, he did. Wrote and directed that as well.
And that was another one of my favorites that year. Terrific film. I've heard it's one of those that you walk out and you'll be talking about it in the parking lot, trying to sort through what you saw.
For sure. I spent a good 45 minutes talking with the person I went with, and just we were both kind of really enthralled with it. We really enjoyed it. And we were still kind of questioning the ending, which is another good sign of a great frickin' science fiction movie. It is based on a novel by Jeff Vandermeer, and Alex Garland adapted it. God, what a job he did. Seriously. There were these great little moments. Like, it wasn't outright a horror movie, but there were moments of real creepiness that was just really, really effective. It had one, maybe two surprises that happened that was really, really well done. I'm gushing a little bit, but I can tell you right now that this is most assuredly a top 10 movie for me this year so far. This is like when last year when we were talking about Logan and we said Logan is probably going to be a top 10 movie for me, and you agreed. Mm-hmm. And this is another one. I really hope you get a chance to see it.
I'll tell you what, I was hoping to try to catch it this weekend. I will definitely look out for it. And,
yeah.
Okay.
I would definitely. I would. In fact, we had a show scheduled in March. Was it March or April for New Mutants? I would not have a problem if we, since New Mutants is no longer playing there, I would not have a problem if you said, hey, why don't we cover this movie there? Because I think we could. Yes, everybody, please, 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 go see this movie. Please. Give it lots and lots of money. I don't even care if you hate it. I just want it to have lots and lots of money because I want Alex Garland to keep making movies.
What's on Barbara's mind, Charlie? Is she about to go into action as that domino daredevil Batgirl? Batgirl, 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 Batgirl. Where do you come from? Where do you go? What is your scene, baby? We just gotta know. Batgirl, Batgirl.
Joss Whedon is backing out of the DCEU. He's not doing Batgirl anymore. I frankly, didn't even know that there was a Batgirl coming out, so this is kind of news to me all around. And I don't know the circumstances, so I'm going to have to rely on you to fill me in.
The basic gist of it is that he backed away in a way that made Warner Brothers seem good. He said, I just don't feel I could do a good enough job, blah, 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 blah. He was very self-effacing, but that's what he does. So he kind of took the hit on it, but it came in the same week, like literally they let leak that, the previews for Aquaman were excellent, and so on and so forth. And by the way, Joss Whedon's no longer directing Batgirl. It's like, guys, seriously. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing over there. How do you keep messing up these characters? Yeah. You had the perfect guy to do Batgirl, and you let him go.
He and now that you mention it, yeah, he really was, wasn't he? He was, based on the things that he has done, yeah, he probably would have been dynamite for Batgirl.
Yeah, 100%. I was looking forward to it. I could have cared less about it. I mean, when they first announced it, the Wonder Woman hadn't even come out yet. And I was kind of like, well, if Wonder Woman fails, at least I know Batgirl's going to work. And then Wonder Woman succeeded. And I was kind of like, okay, so maybe this will be the signal that they need. Maybe just, hey, get all the girl characters going. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, it's just, it was one of those situations when I read it, I just kind of put my head in my hands, and I was like, oh, you sons of bitches. Oh, you stupid, stupid, stupid people.
Do you really, all right, were you surprised, though, at this point?
No, I'm sure there was a lot of finger pointing over the failure of Justice League's box office. I'm sure of that. I'm sure he kind of took some hits for it as well.
I can't see how he, not to veer too far off topic, but I mean, how can that poor guy take the blame for that shit show?
I don't know. You know how it is. Everything's,
Sure.
What's the old saying? Success has many fathers, and failure is an orphan.
Yeah.
An orphan. Yeah. This is definitely one of those cases.
Sure. So, J.J. Abrams has officially completed a script for Episode 9. Dave, any thoughts? Any excitement? Anything?
Flaccid is the word that comes to mind.
Star Wars makes me go a big rubbery one.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one. And again, after the ending of the last one, I frankly just, at this stage of the game, the so-called Resistance, the entire Resistance fits on the Millennium Falcon. Now, if you were in the middle of the Civil War, okay, and basically you sent home the entire other side, sent them home in something about the size of a school bus, I'd say that war was over. I'd say you were as good as done. So they just painted J.J. Abrams into such a corner. I can't imagine what he's going to do at this point. So, and is any of it going to be credible at this point? they're going to reinvent the rebellion, and somehow they're going to conquer the New Order. I don't know how. I don't care how. It doesn't make any. None of it at this point would make any sense. So I really like. I hate to say it. It's Star Wars. This incarnation of Star Wars is absolutely dead to me.
Yep. I'm not looking forward to any of the spin-offs. I don't have... Even if they tell me tomorrow, we've got Ewan McGregor and we're going to do the Tales of Obi-Wan, my first question would be, who's writing it, who's directing it? And even then, why would I get excited? Let's bring it back to the beginning of the show. Let's say they announce Obi-Wan, a Star Wars story, written and directed by Alex Garland.
Yes.
Even that won't excite me.
And with Kathleen Kennedy right over his shoulder, scolding him for being a privileged white male, and telling him that Ben Kenobi wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for his wife or little sister or somebody.
Okay. Let's just reel it back a little bit. I wasn't going to go that far, but hey, who knows? Maybe JJ will pull it out of his butt.
So let's see what's in that mystery box for episode 9.
Little knowledge is a dangerous thing. News, facts, memoirs, internet of old. Burn it. We are not born equal, so we must be made equal by the fire.
This one's an exciting one for me, actually. This is one of my favorite novels. Okay, it was one of the first science fiction novels I read. Certainly the first Ray Bradbury novel I ever read. And I remember exactly why I read it. Because, I don't know if you remember, back in the early days of HBO, when HBO first went 24 hours, one of the things that they used to do was they would play like the same PG movie over and over and over again during the day. Mm-hmm. And when I would come home from school, one of the ones that they played was Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Oh, right, yeah. Good movie.
You remember that one?
Sure.
Yeah. And, one of the things I remember about it is it was always written by Ray Bradbury. Well, who's this Ray Bradbury guy? And he wound up getting a TV series, like a Twilight Zone-esque series on HBO later on down the line.
Like Ray Bradbury Theater or something like that?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly that. So, when I first started, I was like, well, who is this guy? What's his, most well-known... Oh, Fahrenheit 451. It turned out I'd have to read it, 2 years later in high school anyway, but I checked it out. And it is one of my favorite novels. So... HBO is doing a full-length movie being written and directed by Ramin Baharani. I'm completely destroying that name. He's mostly been a writer. He's written things like Chop Shop, 99 Homes, Lift You Up, stuff like that. Directing-wise, yeah, pretty much the same stuff. Mostly art house stuff, which is kind of interesting. There's not anything on his list that I've ever actually seen. Chop Shop, I think, might be the only one that I've actually heard of before, because that won a lot of festival awards. And he's writing and directing it. And what attracted me to it, not just because of, hey, it's something I always was, it's the cast. It's got an amazing cast. It's got Michael B. Jordan, Mr. Killmonger himself,
there you go.
Who we, were very cool about last week. He's playing Guy Montag, who's the main character. It's got Michael Shannon playing Captain Beatty. Michael Shannon, as you know, Joe and I thought he was freaking amazing in Man of Steel as Zod. And it's coming this May, and we watched the trailer just before we started the show. And now that I've gone through that little preamble, Mr. Joe, we know my excitement. I thought the trailer was damn good. What did you think?
I have to confess, I know I read this book ages ago, and honestly, when you mentioned it, I was like, oh no, which one is that again? And once I watched the trailer, I was like, oh yeah, okay, that now I remember. The Fahrenheit 451 is the heat at which books burn or something like that.
Paper burns at 451 degrees.
There
yes.
You go. I am kind of excited for this, and I'm curious to see what they do with it too. And like you said, the cast is spectacular. Creedmonger was spectacular, and I can't wait. I really like watching what he does. So.
Creedmonger, I like that.
So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. It looks pretty interesting.
Yep, it comes out in May. Visually, it looked amazing. The fire effects look really, really good. Hell, even the futuristic effects that they had going on, the almost Blade Runner-esque skyline and stuff like that, yeah. I dug. I like that.
And it's interesting, too, because they definitely have to update that story. 50 plus years ago, burning books would have been enough to erase history. Now you have internets and hard drives and all kinds of things to destroy.
Yep, and the trailer actually alludes to that, which I really appreciate.
They did, yeah. So it'll be nice to see how they cross that bridge.
Good morning, Mr. Phelps. This is your mission should you choose to accept it. Should you or any member of your IM force be caught or killed, the Secretary will disavow all knowledge of your actions. Ethan Hunt will be your point man as usual. Good luck, Jim.
An American agent, under false suspicion of disloyalty, must discover and expose the real spy without the help of his organization. Written by David Kopp, Steven Zalian, and Robert Towne, based on characters of the TV series created by Bruce Geller, directed by Brian De Palma, from 1996, ladies and gentlemen, Mission Impossible. Dun, 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 dun. We kind of did that a little Beavis and Butthead like. But yes, 22 years ago, this movie premiered and was a big deal at the time.
Wow.
And since then, every couple of years, here comes another Mission Impossible. We're up to 6 now.
Yeah. It's definitely not annually yet. Now, this is an interesting franchise because, again, seriously, I don't think any actor has played James Bond as long, chronologically speaking, as Tom Cruise has played Ethan Hunt. I mean, it's actually kind of amazing. And again, it's wild because, every time he wants to do an action movie, there's Mission Impossible ready to go. And it has really afforded him, among other things, some of the most amazing stunts caught on film, really.
I would definitely grant that.
Yeah.
Some of absolutely positive. I mean, one of the things about this series that has made it as popular for as long as it has, I think, is because of the physicality of it, the way that he throws himself into it. I mean, half the advertisements when the new movie comes out is, and in this one, we hang Tom Cruise from an airplane, and in this one, we hang Tom Cruise off of the tower down in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And in this one, we're going to have him dangling off of a helicopter as it takes off. Mm-hmm. It's like, you're a psychopath, but I like that about him, actually.
I tell you, I mean, as weird as he may be in real life, you cannot argue with his dedication to his craft. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, he loves doing his own stunts, and he drives them crazy. But boy, does it pay off!
Oh yeah, I mean, even if you think about it, what's the big show-stopping quote unquote stunt is the scene in the. I mean, there's a lot of different stunts. There's the thing on top of the speed train. I don't count that because that's 90% green screen and fans and stuff like that. But the real showcasing of his physicality, I think, is when they break into the CIA for the knock list in that giant pentagonal room where he's climbing down from the thing. I mean, he literally hung upside down for hours to do that scene, for God's sakes, and had to move around and all that equipment. Bless him, man. That was a tense scene, and it was a scene of nothing.
That was the scene. I mean, before you even when you saw the commercial for the film, you saw the clips of that scene, and you were just like, "What?" That was the one that I think got the asses in the seats. Frankly,
I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting though that this film, as much as we're kind of gushing about all the stunts, honestly, this film probably has the least of the stunts. This was a different kind of a film. It's interesting that this one was a springboard for a series as it is. This one was very different. Brian De Palma is one of those directors that I've got kind of mixed feelings on. I mean, it's kind of almost sacrilege to say that, but I find he's got a style that I always feel like it's almost like Brian De Palma is trying really hard to be Brian De Palma and doesn't always get there. And there's some things that he does that, for example, he did The Untouchables, and the great scene that everybody remembers is the scene with the baby carriage falling down the steps during the gunfight.
Right, but that's Battleship Potemkin remake, basically.
Right. Well, there's that too. Yeah. But even then, I've always watched that scene and always felt like, as tense as it wants to be, I'm watching that baby carriage always kind of just sort of go down one step at a time, and even though pretty much descends the entire staircase without ever falling over. You know, the fact that somebody catches it on the last step, it's like, oh, thank God we caught the crib, and I'm like, yeah, but but it wouldn't have just gone down like, you know. So I like I said, I always have sort of mixed feelings with some of the stuff he tries to do. But again, you got Robert Towne, one of the writers from Chinatown, for God's sakes.
Yep.
I mean, this was a really kind of. One of the things I love about this film is it really does capture that sort of film noir kind of a feel. You know, that Eastern Europe, you know, Cold War. And again, I mean, the Cold War was already over at this point, but it still captured that sort of third man sort of feel. I mean, this was like trench coats and everything. I really, really like this film. I don't love it the way some of the other ones are. I love the series. This one is good. I really like it. And it's funny watching it again this weekend. It was the first time I've seen it in a long time. Because honestly, I don't really think to watch it too often. It's almost like once you've seen it, you know, and once you know all the secrets, you don't really go back to it that much. But anyway, just as opening comments, I mean, it's a great film. I really like a lot about it.
You know what? The one thing about this movie that's different from the rest of the series, this one sticks closer to the original TV series in the respect of it focuses a lot more on the intrigue and the mystery, as opposed to the later movies, which, you know, seem to be more flashy, less mystery-ish. The story is to get point A, B, and C, and that's it. That's how the remaining of the series. This was the first one that actually attempted, at least, to have, like, you know, a mystery that needed to be solved. And weirdly, they jettisoned that for the rest of the movies, and I'm mixed about it, because a part of me is like, I kind of like the intrigue. I like the mystery part of it. The problem is that this first one did the mystery, let's face it, poorly. It didn't do really all that good with the mystery. By, like, I'd say 30 the minute the girl showed up at the apartment after he had just been accused of being a rogue agent and everything like that, the minute she showed up at the apartment, even back when I first saw it, I knew, okay, she's involved. She's 100% involved. She's the reason why he got caught, and probably one other person is going to show up later. And sure enough, it was Mr. Phelps.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. You know, one of the problems I remember a lot of people had about it, and I should say this, by the way, I remember the show, but I could not tell you anything about it, besides the fact that it was like just one of the spy shows that were popular back then. I remember a lot of people, when this one came out, they got annoyed because, well, like, it starts out with the team, but then the team is done away with in the opening scene of the film, and it becomes a Tom Cruise vehicle, and you know, and even Phelps, who I think is he's a good guy in the show. Now he's a turncoat, and again, it becomes just Tom Cruise sort of solo. I didn't have that. I didn't remember that much of the show to really find a problem with that. And frankly, I did sort of find it genuinely subverted expectations, because again, the cast was so good. They bothered to get Emilio Estevez and Kristen Scott Thomas, and like, that was a pretty impressive lineup. So the fact that they got bumped off so fast, you were kind of like, oh, that caught you genuinely by surprise, I think. So
I actually enjoyed that. I'm one of the few people that thought that was a great way of subverting expectations. I was like, oh, okay, so they're not the main team, so okay, what's going on with this?
Yeah. Right. So I mean, I guess whereas the show was had a lot to do with the teamwork, this one not so much. But still, it's funny, but it does that in the first episode. But again, in future incarnations, you do start to get the team back together, or at least a new team going forward. But I do get why that would disappoint, fans of the show in this one. When you said that they didn't handle the mystery so well, I hear what you're saying. I don't know if I would completely agree, because there was a lot of it that I did like. I almost feel like I like the style of the mystery probably more than the substance of it, because I like the idea that, he immediately says job 314 and Cruise makes the connection to the Bible verse and kind of tracks him down that way. I thought that was pretty clever and pretty well done. But I do agree with you that once the character started showing up again, especially when Jon Voight's Mr. Phelps shows up again. I mean, at that point, and in fact, this was the thing too. I do remember, especially the first time I saw it, I walked away saying to myself, you needed a calculator and a slide rule to follow this movie. Because I could not figure out what the hell was going on. And even in subsequent watches, again, I'm waiting to see what I'm missing, but it really wasn't as much as I thought. But again, I remember when he meets Phelps, right? When he goes to the phone booth and he shows up, and they go and they're having coffee, and they're sort of, you see Tom Cruise playing everything in his mind, and you understood that Phelps faked his death. Mm-hmm. I really couldn't figure out, and frankly, I'm not really sure now. A, does Tom Cruise know that he's dirty at that point? And B, is the audience supposed to know that he's dirty at that point? Because it seems like you are. It seems like you are supposed to know this, but yet things still progress. I mean, put it this way. If the audience knows and Tom Cruise knows, then Mr. Phelps should also know that they know, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So I'm waiting to, I'm saying to myself, is Tom Cruise playing along? Is he just kind of throwing around possibilities in his head and that's what we're supposed to get? I'm not sure. And plus, there's a lot of points in the film where they rely on actual flashback to explain things. So it's almost like if they want you to know, they'll tell you. They'll if you didn't put it together, they'll help you put it together. So I still walk away saying, I'm not 100% positive what I'm supposed to get from that.
That particular scene was actually one of my pain points in the movie, where he's sitting there with Mr. Phelps, and Phelps is trying to explain away why he's gone away, But here's the real interesting part about it, the part that really infuriates me. I know why Mr. Phelps reappeared for the plot. He reappeared for the plot so that Cruise's character can make the connection and have that little flashback where he's trying to sort it out, but, present it in a way that, it was Kittredge. So Kittredge did this and Kittredge did that. But in his mind, he's like knowing it was all Phelps. But you know what they never really explained very well? Why did Mr. Phelps bother showing up again? What was his point? What was his point to come out in the open to Ethan? What was that all about?
Well, I guess what's happening, if I'm understanding this correctly, and like I said, I mean, there's a great possibility I'm not. The whole operation goes south, and they call it a mole hunt, right? They're trying to figure out. They know somebody in this group is dirty, so they send him on this mission for the sole purpose of figuring out who's dirty. But the only way they really figure it out is by everybody getting killed, and whoever's not dead must therefore be the bad guy, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. No. But then, but from there, Tom Cruise is trying to figure out who's setting up who and who's doing what. The only thing he has to go on is the knock list, and Job, from what he is told by Kittredge. So he basically now steps in, figures out what Max wants. Max wants the knock list, so Cruise goes after it in order to sell it. So now, because Cruise actually does have the correct list, because the first one was garbage, because again, they I guess they planted that first knock list was worthless. They go to Langley, do the high wire act, and actually get the genuine knock list. So now Cruise has it, and he's in the position to sell it. That's why Phelps has to reveal himself and step in and get involved and now get into his trust again, so that he can get it from Cruise?
Except that part of the deal that he made with Max is, on the day that he gives him the knock list, he has Job there, which was, of course, Mr. Phelps. So why even bother? Why not just have the reveal happen at the end? I think it would have worked a lot better had they just skipped that entire section where Mr. Phelps shows up again, and Emmanuel Bert's character, Claire, goes back and tells him, Jim, we shouldn't kill him, and then he rips the mask off then and reveals the little flashback where he's like, this is how I figured it out. I think that would have been better.
That's probably true. I mean, maybe just at that point in the story they needed some kind of a jolt to wake people up, because I mean it was good.
I guess, but I feel like they reshot it, because if you remember the scene, when they show the bullet train and the camera's like panning in, all the windows are open except for this one window where you see it's half closed and you just see hands putting together a gun and getting equipment together and so on and so forth. Now, at that point in the movie, not only do we know that Mr. Phelps is still alive, but that Tom Cruise already knows that he's probably Joe because they showed it in the flashback. Why bother doing a scene where they're hiding his face if the original intent was that the big reveal was supposed to be on the train in the end, and they didn't just add this scene back in for whatever stupid reason?
That is a good point. I mean, but yeah. But I say to myself, if they did take that out of the middle, you are really sort of thinning out the story a lot.
It's already a thin story.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's like they were trying to add meat to a story that was already too thin, and the meat was rotten. You know, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, it sounds like I'm begging on this movie. I honestly enjoyed the movie. Don't get me wrong, but as a movie, it's just You know, you can still be entertained by a movie that's
Yeah, we are kind of waffling on it. Listen, like I said, I've kind of gone back and forth with this. I haven't really watched it a lot over the years because, again, I found the other ones to be so much better. I like the style of it, but yeah, I don't know. I really struggled to sort of follow it. And, you know, when they introduced Krieger, I remember kind of feeling like when he turned out to be sort of dirty. I mean, they do sort of, like, she says something about, like, oh, I'm sorry, he was kind of my idea.
Yeah.
I felt that was a little weak. I kind of felt like why would Tom Cruise sort of let him get under the radar? You know, I mean, again, even that scene where he's got the necklace. He says, I call the shots now. And he sort of does the little magic sleight of hand, you know, or maybe you don't, maybe I have it, whatever. And he says to him, like, do you really think I would trust you with it? And he just chucks it in the trash can. Then it turns out later it actually was the actual necklace, you know?
Yeah.
And so he did sort of let that guy have it. I don't know. I did sort of say to myself, like, would that really happen? And yeah.
They knew we were coming. Do you read me? I don't care how he did it. I want to know why he did it. You're worried about me. Why you survived?
I'm sure we can find something I have that you need.
It has holes. It has a lot of holes. It's to me, I think the thing that's more incredible is that from this grew an empire. Because I really feel like this is going to be one of those rare movies where the first in its series we're going to give the lowest review to, and we'll actually give higher reviews to its sequel.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's the brand name. You know, I mean, you're not going to give up a brand name called Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise is a great action star. And, you know, even if the first one is not perfect, there just is no reason why not to do another one with the same name, the same character, and just do it differently. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, we pulled the wind out of our sails on this one, didn't we? We were like, at first we were like, yes, we're so excited. And then as we're talking, we realized, but I think we're more excited about the other entries in the series.
No, listen, I have always said that, my favorites are the other ones. I mean, I'll admit it, and they sort of free themselves from the shackles once they get past this one. This one, I think, again, like Brian De Palma, great idea, and we'll make this very Cold War, Third Man, and I mean, again, they do a good blend of styles where it's, you know, old Eastern European hotel rooms that are kind of cold and gray, sort of combined with the high tech of today, and they do a good balance of that. I mean, I really find it's almost like some of my favorite James Bond movies do that. Like The Living Daylights is also set in Prague, and it's very Cold War-ish, even though the Cold War is over at that point. Right. Even Casino Royale, I will say, does something similar where, because again, even though it's a very modern James Bond film, they still set it in, like, you know, cities in Eastern Europe that have been around for centuries. And I think that balance of, you know, classic combined with modern works. And again, the high wire scene is really great. The fact that I think one of the things they stuck with in future films, and there's a few things that you do see in this one that keep going in other films. The rubber mask, for one thing.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a trope that sort of sticks with it. The idea of the impossible heist, where they sort of explain the layout of the room and all of the defenses and everything, and that's how they and all the things they have to get around. You know, like in the very sort of Ocean's 11. It's almost like Ocean's 11, you know, kind of took that part of it and sort of ran with it.
Right.
You know, so I think that stuff all really works, and you have to sort of hand it to this movie for creating that. And again, this is not a series that like as opposed to the James Bond series, which is very, very mired in its own tropes, martinis and girls and all that other stuff that they have to sort of put in each one. This one, again, I think it had just enough that you can sort of fall back on some of these things if you need it, the rubber mask or whatnot. But if you don't, it sort of frees itself to do other things. And, you know, again, that's why I think the other films sort of flourish better than this one. Because this one again, they've sort of created a style and they try to stick with it for the most part. I mean, you know, I do sort of think that the train scene at the end kind of breaks loose of all the shackles a little too much at that. It's almost like they really needed a...
Yeah.
I feel like at that point, they were a little too cold and too serious. And I mean, this really was not an action movie. You know, like, I mean, seriously, him hanging off of the wires in the room, I don't think really qualifies it as an action film. There's not a lot of action in it. So I think by the end, they kind of figure we need something to sort of fire one out there, you know, to really cap this off. And not one of my favorite scenes. I'll just say that.
No, well, I don't blame you for it doesn't age. The scene to this day does not age very, very well. Okay, and let's not even get into the one thing that I liked about the rest of the flick. You know, even at its most ridiculous, at least it had a level of plausibility. The idea of the chewing gum that had like a primary and a secondary, and when it combined, it became like an explosive.
Yeah.
Okay. That's actually not outside the realm. So I didn't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the computer hacking and all that stuff, that's fine. You know, computer hacking is like the buzzword of the day, whatever. I didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Even the scene where he breaks in for the knock list was very well done. It was very physical. That was great. And then they have this big physics-defying scene where Ethan Hunt jumps onto the ski of the helicopter, activates that little thing that they did like 3 times in the movie. It was the 3rd time. The first time Emilio Estevez showed him. The 2nd time he actually used it in the fish tanks, which visually, by the way, was a very nice scene. But and then finally he does it on the window there, and it explodes, and he just jumps back on the bullet train. He just jumps back on it.
Yeah.
You know, the train going like 140 miles an hour. Just jumps right back on it.
Right. Right. Everyone else is going to die. Mr. Phelps he's hanging off the other one. Mr. Phelps is going to explode, but Tom Cruise will get propelled forward right back onto the train where he started from. So.
Right. Let's completely break physics just for this. Bad enough, like they completely broke physics. There's no way a helicopter goes through a tunnel that fast and makes it. Doesn't happen.
No. I mean, yeah, it's right. The fact that it's able to fly in that tiny tunnel attached to the train. The fact that it just, you're right. I mean, there's no point even talking about it because you just kind of say, no. Like, the second it goes into the tunnel, you're already like checked out. You're just like, okay, yeah. So it's like that. Okay, fine. So yeah, I mean, and it was kind of frustrating because like up until that point, you were still sort of on board. Like even when, like Phelps goes out, he's got the suction cup thingy, so he's got his way to get down the train, and that was fine. But then Tom Cruise is out there, you know, takes off his jacket and his tie, and and he's just holding on just for whatever. Right. You're still sort of on board with it. You're like, all right, he's a little crazy for doing what he's doing. He doesn't have the equipment the other guy does. But once the helicopter goes into the tunnel, you're done. Like the movie's over at that point.
That's really, I mean, there were moments in the movie that I was like, you know, okay. And then that happens. It's like, nope, I'm done. That's it. Why did I go see Mission Impossible 2? Which we'll get to. And which I think had many improvements, but we'll get on to that. Yeah, no, that scene completely killed the movie for me in the end.
Yeah.
And there were like little moments, but it was like, okay, this, well, I guess I could forgive that. The way they're spoon feeding this idea that Mr. Phelps is the bad guy, I guess I can sort of forgive that. Then the train scene happens, like, no, I'm sorry. You almost had me. You almost had me.
Not to mention, like, a helicopter with one person dangling on it, I think is already, I don't even think a helicopter can stay up with people hanging off it.
I don't know the physics behind it, but at that point, is that really the hill you want to die on?
Right. I mean, I'm just saying, like, already, I think by the time that what's his name was hanging off, and I'm kind of going, and then when Cruise jumps on it, I'm like, no. Yeah, a tiny helicopter like that is not made to lift heavy weight. It'll sustain its own weight, and that's about it.
Yep. And then, of course, it had to do that dramatic, the blade is just spinning, right. And the last blade that just happens to be the sharpest blade left on the copter just goes right under Ethan's neck.
Yeah. That was the scene, honest to God, where, and again, I'm watching it over the weekend with my girlfriend and her mother. Once that's all going on, you just hear, only in Hollywood.
Yeah. Yep. And It is a detriment to the movie. It's why, I'm sure, on top of the relatively confusing plot. I mean, what the funny part is, if you break the plot down, it's not all that confusing. It was just told terribly. It was told in a terrible fashion.
Yeah. And
didn't make sense as presented. I don't want to sit here and break it down. I really don't want to sit here and break it down, because it's like, it's convoluted, but it could have been told a lot better. And I kind of feel like there's this one scene. I feel like Brian De Palma got the job for like this one scene and one scene alone. Brian De Palma loves doing like split screens. You watch any of his earlier films, and even some of his most recent films, he loves doing this thing with split screens, where it's showing like both perspectives happening at the same time. And he only did it once in this movie, and it was the scene where they're trying to get back on the elevator. Emilio Estevez, who was uncredited in the part, he's on top of the elevator, and the camera kind of pans from the room where Tom Cruise and Kristen Scott Thomas is in, through the wall to the elevator, where you see Emilio Estevez, and the elevator starts rising. And the camera kind of follows it up with him to the next floor. That's a Brian De Palma shot right there. Yeah. That is such a Brian De Palma. That was the only Brian De Palma shot in the entire movie, and I feel like that's the only reason why he got hired, was for that one shot. The rest, any monkey could have done.
I don't know if I go that far. I do think there's a certain style that he gives this that not a lot of people would have done the same way. But yeah, I agree. It's not, I mean, frankly, you probably could make the argument that it is pretty impressive that the rest of the series did survive this first one, because again, it was a very mixed reaction kind of a movie. Where, like, I distinctly remember people saying, like, you needed a calculator and a slide rule to figure this out. Like, you know what I mean?
I do remember that.
I mean, again, you went for the Langley scene, but the rest of it, you're just like, what? So yeah, it was very mixed at best. I guess there is a part of me that's sort of looking at it with a lot of nostalgia. Had we not had the series that kind of came from this, what would I be saying about this film as a standalone? And yeah, I guess I would be very mixed, and I guess I would not be praising it as much as I am. But, like I said, I probably would have said it needed more. It would have needed more punch, would have needed more something. Again, the set pieces that they have, the one is terrific, but some are just kind of okay. I mean, the opening is really good. The opening with the team working, I thought that worked out pretty good. I thought that was pretty smart.
Why don't we quietly get out of here onto a plane? I can understand you're very upset.
Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
All right, Hunt. Enough is enough. You have bribed, cajoled, and killed, and you have done it using loyalties on the inside. You want to shake hands with the devil, that's fine with me. I just want to make sure that you do it in hell.
It is kind of a hearkening back in a weird way, in that it's a purer time with regards to special effects, and yet you get a glimpse of where it was going with that train wreck of a train wreck at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
there's just no nicer way of putting it. It was a train wreck of a train wreck.
Yeah.
It was awful. It was a terrible way to end the movie. I felt. Well, actually, not completely true. I felt like, ending on the plane where it turns out they make Ethan the new Mr. Phelps. I was okay with that. I thought it was kind of a cute way to end it. And the fact that Luther survived. You see, there's one thing we should talk about real quick. Can we talk about Ving Rhames? Can we talk about the only other person to make it through the entire series? The entire series! Mr. Ving Rhames, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, that is absolutely true. I mean, there is one time that I think he was relegated to just a cameo, but still, he has been in every single Mission Impossible film.
And he's in the next one. And him and, actually, what's his name? Simon Pegg has become like the new tag-along since I want to say the 4th or 5th one.
I'm pretty sure Jeremy Renner also shows up here again, and this will be his 3rd.
Actually, no. Jeremy Renner wasn't able to make this one because of Civil War. He had a choice. It's like you could either do Civil War or you could do Mission Impossible, and he chose Civil War. And thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I'll give him that. But I guess I think is Alec Baldwin that is also in this one again.
Yep, he was in the trailer too.
He shows up, yeah. So yeah, you're right. But Ving Rhames, I mean, he is terrific in this, and I do like the fact that he has become the recurring character. I like him in the other ones too.
I read that the reason they cast him as the computer hacker was because he had presence and because he's the last person you would ever expect to be a computer hacker. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely okay with that. Yeah. To me, seeing Marcellus Wallace as a computer hacker, I giggled the first time he showed up in the movie, way back in '96, and I was like, and as he went along, it's like, okay, you know what? You proved me wrong. I love him, and I'm so glad he's still with the series.
Yeah. He really does have great presence. It's funny when you saw him in Pulp Fiction. I mean, you thought he could only do tough guy kind of roles, and he's a tough guy, but still, he really does have just great presence in everything he does.
The man is golden. Man, what a voice, and everything about him is. He could talk about technical. I like the 686 with the Rex processor. And it's like, okay, yes, sir. Yes, I believe you understand exactly what that is. Absolutely, yes, Mr. Rhames. Yeah. But yeah, he's the only other surviving one. I mean, they didn't even bring Henry Czerny, who was like the 80s, 90s techno thriller villain actor, the guy who played Kittredge.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, he didn't even make it to the next one, for God's sake. I feel bad for the guy too, because I mean, he was also he was the jerk, the jerk from Clear and Present Danger, the Jack Ryan one with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
He was the White House guy. He's very good at playing a jerk. Let's just put it that way.
Right. He's up there with the principal from the Breakfast Club.
Yeah. He's up there with him. He's up there with oh God.
I know you're gonna say.
Shoot. Oh, but what's his name?
The reporter from Die Hard.
The reporter, Henry Peck, Mr. Pecker.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we should make a mental note of someday covering the Ghostbusters movies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But you know what's funny, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to just point this out right here and now. We just spent about 10 minutes talking about a bunch of other movies and not Mission Impossible. Other movies that Ving Rhames did and who were great dick characters throughout the history of film. But we've gotten off of Mr. Mission Impossible because this first one is that forgettable. The only thing it's good for is it is the origin story of Ethan Hunt. That's it. And to be perfectly honest with you, one of the things I kind of liked about the series is there is only the thinnest connective tissue between each of them. You could really watch any of them without having seen the previous ones.
Yeah, very true, very true. I mean, even in the second one, which I'm kind of looking forward to, by the way.
I am too.
I'm really excited to talk about that one because I've actually been I have a lot to say about it. Yeah, but even there, you can see they style-wise they drastically try to change it, and they try to set it loose and say this is different than that one, and again, we're keeping the good stuff, but be prepared for a different style of movie. Are we up to our scores, my friend?
I believe we are. I just looked at the time, and we're at the good point where we could probably do it. So, Okay, I gave it a 6.
Okay.
And originally, when the movie was done, I originally had given it a higher score. But as we started talking, it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm an idiot. I can't give this movie a higher score than that. It's an okay movie. It's an entertaining enough movie that derails itself in the final act with an action sequence that was more over the top than any other part of the movie allowed it to be. It's got good things going for it, good enough that it spawned a franchise, so yay for that. And yeah, that's about it. Just a 6. It's not the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's kind of a miracle that any of it works the way that it does, and with how the production was and everything like that. I like that they subverted expectations by killing off the original team right at the beginning of the movie. And the original plan was that was supposed to be like the original actors from the TV series that they did that to.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, like they wanted Martin Landau, they wanted Peter Graves to come back. They wanted Peter Graves to play Jim Phelps. That's why Jim Phelps was an older person to be in that range. So yeah, no, and none of them, and all of them looked at the script and they're like, "Nah, it's okay. We're gonna pass." and Martin Landau would later say, "No, that movie was shit." But it's an okay start. It's more miraculous that it's had legs. That it managed to. It's like you're watching an Olympic event and the gun goes off and out of the gate they get a decent start but then stumble for a second and then like somehow they manage to still keep pace with the remaining sequels. So that's where I stand with it.
I'm gonna be slightly more generous and give it a 7. I actually, as we were talking, I actually did teeter on a 6 myself. I feel like I kind of went into this review like all full of pep and I was going to give it some high marks. And as we talked, it's like, you know what, you're right. I can't really give it that much. I mean, there is a lot of just, I like it for what it's trying to do, and I like it for the style. Again, that kind of cold third man, Eastern European, Cold War feel. I see what he's doing there, and there's times when it works spectacularly. The cast is great. We didn't mention Emmanuelle Beert, by the way, who is the wife.
The femme fatale, so to speak.
Yes, who is absolutely stunning, and I think perfect for this role. I think this is her only major English-speaking role, frankly. But I mean, she's got that exotic look, and they're kind of trying to go for that in this film. Very Black Ops feel, and there's a lot of times when I think it really works pretty well. But yeah, it lingers, and the plot points are very confusing. And like I said, the climax just kind of gets. They try to reestablish itself as an action film, but with this over the top scene that really just doesn't work. It doesn't work in the reality that they've set up. But again, I like it for what it does well, and I'm gonna have to settle on a 7. And I just feel that it gets better. I mean, it gets better from here. This is a movie that I think it's like if you bought the whole series, I can honestly say that there's none that you're gonna look at and say, oh, this one's really lame. This is a solid film. I really don't want to cast too many aspersions on it because I really think it succeeds on a lot of levels, but nowhere near where it's gonna get.
I have to wonder if, because the series did improve as it went along, if that's kind of tainted us on this first one.
I do too, and frankly, that could sort of work both ways, though. I mean, it could. Maybe the fact that the other ones are so much better is why you'd be sort of prone to picking on this one a little bit, or maybe we go easy on it because it was the springboard for a great series. Hard to say.
I guess that would depend upon who asked you, sir.
Who asked me? I'm just gonna go for the train scene. The train, the wildly over the top train sequence. Again, it's they needed something with some punch at that point, but that, no.
I don't necessarily know if that was punch or just it was like throwing a ball at a kid who wasn't even paying attention.
Yeah. How about you?
The mystery, the supposed mystery. It just, I really, really hate. I understand what they were trying to do, but it was just executed so goddamn poorly. Like, I found it annoying as it went along. Like, every time that, like, you know, it would, like, try to let the audience know this is an important thing. Like, when Jean Reno has knocked over the Bible, he picks it up, and it's stamped with the Drake Hotel, and there's Ethan Hunt, and the camera's zooming in on him, and it's like, I am Mr. I am Mr. Tom Cruise thinking. What am I thinking? What's going on in my head? And you hear the replay of, where'd she stay the last time? The Drake Hotel. Hate that.
They did a lot in this. Like I said, you know, I'm telling you, I really have some funny feeling about Brian De Palma. They did that a few times in this film, these actual flashbacks. Even the scene where they're talking in the restaurant, you know, the whole, you know, you haven't seen me very upset moment. Yeah. Like, as soon as...
The trailer moment.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as like, you know, they go in and everything is... You know, the camera is level. But then as soon as things start to get, like, twisty and turny, the camera's, like, looking right up everybody's nose. And I'm like, I see what you're doing there, but, dude, you know, dial it back a little bit. Like, I mean, it's a little over the top there.
The nostril hair shots.
Seriously. We get it. Well, things are not as they seem.
You know, I felt like they had a relatively decent mystery that they screwed up the execution on. That I think the reveal of Jim Phelps still being alive at the end would have worked a lot better if it had waited to the end.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I you know, again, I guess they're trying to get a little mileage out of having Jon Voight in their film, and like I said, that middle is about 2/3 into the film, and they probably needed some kind of a beat at that point. But yeah, it doesn't work. I mean, the fact that he's gonna bust out of the closet with a gun at the end, like, that's no surprise anymore. Like, you know he's bad at that point. Like, you know he's crooked. So, all right, how about for your consideration? Let's go on a positive.
Let's go on the positive. I'm gonna say this because as I watched it, it still amazed me. The combination of practical effects and CGI that they used every time a mask was taking off still looked good. Still looked really good, even till today.
I'll buy that. I agree with that. That's that effect did work out pretty well, and it does stand up. Yeah.
Well, you know how they did it. Basically, Rob Bottin, huge makeup guy back then. I don't even know if he's still working to this day, but he made these lifelike masks. You know, that they would just put on their faces. And then they would just combine CGI and, you know, of mixing from between the live actor playing that part to him ripping off the mask. And it worked brilliantly.
Yeah.
It looked perfect each time.
They really kind of perfect it in the third one, by the way. I like how they treat it in the third one. It's pretty interesting. For a kind of trope that sort of became a trope, it does stick with the series, and it works pretty interestingly in some points.
Yeah. So I was still amazed, even at the end where, you know, where Ethan as Jim Phelps turns and looks at him, and then the young hand reaches over and pulls off. It's almost like I was specifically watching for any flaws, and damn if I couldn't find one.
Yeah.
So absolutely, you deserve credit for that.
I'll buy that.
And how about you, sir?
For my year consideration, I'm just gonna I want to shine a spotlight on the mood of the film. Like that opening in Prague, and there's things happening on little European bridges and down little cobblestone alleys, and I mean that again, they really did sort of capture kind of a moment in time that I you know, ultimately is a little wasted, but still they really do kind of capture something. You know, and the old little hotel room and with Emmanuel Beard and everything. I mean, even the part where she shows up again and he's kind of freaked out and he just pats her down real fast, you know. And again, there's kind of like that there's a sensuality in that moment. You know, it's aggressive, but it's sexual. I mean, there is something that he kind of captures in this film. Again, it doesn't really stay with the series, but I really do think they really kind of got that spy stuff, that kind of classic spy feel in this. And I almost felt like, in a way, at the time, I forget what year this came out, but I almost feel like they were kind of responding to the James Bond series in a way, saying, guys, you know, this used to be a classic spy genre. And I kind of felt like they were trying to reinvent the spy genre. And they do it, you know, again, with levels of success, but they really do sort of capture something here. So I like I said, it kind of creates a mood, and I kind of like that and respect that. So I'll just go with that one.
That works for me. That absolutely positively works for me.
This whole operation was a decoy.
I can understand you're very upset.
You've never seen me very upset.
This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Which I guess sums up our review of Mission Impossible, the first Mission Impossible. Yep,
very middling, very okay. The only other thing I got nothing further to say about that. But next week, directed by the wonderful dove-throwing John Woo.
Yep. I little spoiler, I am very much anxious to talk about next week's, because I do think a lot of people have mixed feelings on this film. I've heard very different opinions on it, so I'm kind of anxious to jump in.
Yep, I am too. And actually, there is one other thing I want to say before we sign off, and I'm sure you'll feel the same way as well, but Kevin Smith, get well soon, man.
That's right, yeah. Feel better, friend. Get well.
That man was a fellow New Jerseyan, inspired me.
This is true.
Inspired me.
This is true. Homegrown hero.
Yes, so until next week, sir, when we cover Mission Impossible 2.
My friend, have a great week, and we'll see you then.
You got it. Excellent show once again, sir. I do love doing this.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.